I'm Bruce Apar, and this is Frank J. Rich, and you're watching Frank Talks with Bruce the Blog.
Go with the red light.
Yeah, coming down. Frank Talks with Bruce the Blog is a weekly community affairs show for those of you who are new to us, and we hope there are always new people watching. And we like to showcase all kinds of interesting people from the community, some of them you may know personally, and talk about all the good things that are going on and what's right with the world, as my co-host Frank Rich likes to say. And we are brought to you by the Penny Saver every week and by our parent company, Chase Media Group. And we thank Carla Chase, our CEO, and my co-host Frank J. Rich for putting us up here every week. Our guest for this show is Bjorn Olsson, Executive Director of Tarrytown Music Hall. And Bjorn, Tarrytown Music Hall has quite an interesting history. For one thing, it's over 125 years old, right? It's
127 and counting.
127 years old, yeah. And it was built in, what, the late 1970s, obviously, if it's 127 years old.
1885.
Right.
Chocolate manufacturer, as a matter of fact. Yes.
Who actually built the...
William Wallace. He had a chocolate factory. So chocolate coins built this theater.
Willie Wallace.
Yeah, right. Like Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
That's right.
W square that makes chocolate.
Right. And it's one of we were just talking about this before we went on the air, that of all the theaters or entertainment venues in the United States, only 6% date back that far, right?
Were built before the year 1900, so it's a rare occurrence to actually. And Tarrytown actually has 2 theaters were built before 1900.
What's that?
The three theaters still standing in Tarrytown alone, and only the music hall is still used as a theater. One is a church, and one is a veterans building.
Oh wow!
But I'm more familiar with the river towns than we're up in Peekskill right now. But the river towns used to have at least 1 theater per town,
right?
1 or 2, and over time, it's been thinned. The herd has been thinned.
Yeah, well. Back then people couldn't stay home and watch TV for their entertainment,
That's
so
right.
there was a lot more need for that type
right.
of entertainment. And you're now going through at the music hall a restoration, right?
Well, we're continuously restoring things. This year we're actually doing a lot of important work that may not be super visible to everybody.
Right.
It's certainly going to give us a facelift on the exterior, but we are addressing things like drainage to protect the building from water, some structural reinforcements, putting in fresh wood where it's starting to get old,
right.
And parking lot paving and that sort of thing. But it's going to be about $1 million project for this year alone.
No, that's great. And in fact, again, on your website, which is very informative, and it's tarrytownmusichall.org, right? It does talk about that in the 70s. Well, the music hall, for one, was shut down for a period of time, but I had images of Joni Mitchell and her famous song when it said that they actually wanted to put a parking lot there. They paved Paradise and put up a parking lot. Is that right? They were going to put a parking lot.
Sure, and I'm also a board member of something called the League of Historic American Theaters. So, I've traveled the country and watched a lot of and it's a very familiar story for these Main Street theaters. They were built either, some are as old as we are. Most were built in the 10s and 20s when sort of the big silent movie boom was happening.
Right.
And then gradually, radio and TV came along, and then multiplexes, and certainly the ones who were movie theaters, and most of them were converted to movie theaters, including the music hall, by the 60s or 70s. Just kind of died a slow death, and nobody ever thought that it would be resurrected. And then all of a sudden in the 70s and 80s, there was this movement to actually save these old theaters, and many of them have been incredibly important to revive the downtowns that, in many ways were devastated by, in their world, by big box stores and so forth.
Yeah, and when you have a theater like yours, you do have to work very closely with the municipality, right? The village of Tarrytown in this case, and also with the businesses in the area. I mean, do you work with businesses to cross-promote, shows at the theater, as well as, of course, whether they're restaurants or other types of?
No, we do.
Businesses?
I mean, obviously, restaurants are one of the more direct beneficiaries of bringing a lot of people to a downtown area. And we try to. Tarrytown happens to have a great main street with a lot of restaurants, a nice restaurant, and very varied offerings. And we send out emails before every show, telling people that these are the great restaurants you can go to. Here are parking and directions and all that. So we try to work closely with them. And it's a small town, so you run into people all the time. Right.
Now, it's very well known to people in this region that, unfortunately, in fall of 2012, the Paramount Center for the Arts, which is actually just down the block from where we're sitting right now, closed temporarily. It's going to reopen under new management, so to speak, even though the city of Peekskill owns it. How has the closure up until now affected you? Has it helped you with box office, and has it affected how you book, the type of acts you book, or your programming?
Not directly. I mean, at the same time, we also had the Capitol Theater in Portchester opening.
Reopen, yeah.
So it's sort of, it's been a tug in both directions in a way.
Right.
The Paramount the last couple of years slowly disappeared from view a little bit. They did not have much luck in their programming, and I think, maybe some of that business went to Tarrytown, and maybe some of it will come back to Peekskill now. I don't know. I do know that since we sort of took the Music Hall Pro, it was a volunteer organization for some 20 years before we came on and as the first staff in many years.
Right.
And we've grown tremendously. We started with some 15,000 people coming every year, and we're up to 90,000 now.
Right.
All through the recession, we've had 10, 15, 20% growth every year. So whether that's related directly to the Paramount or if we're sort of growing the pie in general, I can't tell you, but we've been doing really well.
Now, your organization did participate in the bidding process that the city of Peekskill held to manage the Paramount. It went to a different organization, but your plan, Bjorn, was to simultaneously operate both the Paramount and the Tarrytown Music Hall, right? That was So the fact that this other organization will be running the Paramount, do you have your sights set on expanding in a different direction or with a different venue? Or?
Well, we've been looking to, basically because we're bursting at the seams at the Music Hall. We can't find enough dates for the acts that we want to book and for the programming that we want to do. So we've been looking for years for somewhere, I mean, maybe to have one smaller stage somewhere, and maybe it would be great to be able to book a bigger venue and bring in bigger names as well.
Right.
If that's the Paramount or not, it doesn't really matter, but we're always on the lookout for.
Right.
What's the difference in size relative?
There's a couple of hundred seats between, the Paramount is slightly bigger. I would say that we're basically in the same weight class, whereas the Capitol Theater then has more or less the same number of seats as the Paramount and the Music Hall combined. So they can bring in much bigger artists than we can, and still charge a relatively modest ticket price for it.
And with artists, when you're negotiating with them, and I would imagine, or their managers or agents, whoever represents them, specify the minimum seating capacity that they would perform in front of. Is that
not necessarily? No, not really. I mean, it in the end, the biggest, I would say, the biggest factor would be dollars. I mean, where they can obviously make the most money will. influence their decision in the biggest way. There are other, some of them like to switch between venues a little bit so that they don't sort of get locked in with one, and maybe they can catch a constituency that they, people who wouldn't come to Tarrytown would come to Peekskill instead. So, there's because we're not right in the same town. If we were all in Peekskill, for instance, it might be a different story than. But since we're overlapping markets, basically, then you can catch some people in Peekskill you couldn't in Portchester or Tarrytown as well.
Right. And it's interesting that in looking at your lineup that's in the next couple of months, there's quite a diversity of acts in terms of the demographics that they would appeal to. I mean, we were talking about how, you're coming in May with Mark Twain Tonight, and we were saying, is that still Hal Holbrook doing Mark Twain Tonight after, I don't know how many, it is amazing.
It's an amazing American theater classic. He's been doing this for decades.
Right.
And he has pretty much visited almost, every and he loves historic theaters too, so he likes to. So, he's checking one more off his list by coming to
bucket
Tarrytown,
list, right? Yes. Yeah. So, but you go from, like Hal Holbrook, who you were saying is 88 years old, and Mark Twain Tonight, and Mark Twain is even older. What is he? Must be 200 by now.
Died in 1910, I think.
Oh, is that? Oh,
and he lived for a very short, for a brief period. He actually lived in Tarrytown.
Oh, Samuel Clemens did. Wow, really? And but so you go from that, which of course would appeal to a demographic sort of like us, to like the Mavericks, or they might be Giants, which is the other end of the age spectrum, right? And then of course you do show movies. Like you have the Velveteen Rabbit for kids, and
that's actually a play.
Oh, the Velveteen Rabbit's not a movie?
Oh,
no. I was thinking of the movie.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's a live performance. It's a puppetry.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful little show.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. But you do show movies, don't you?
We do on occasion. We have next week we're showing, and we have a volunteer group that's programming the movies, and they've done a really remarkable job this last year of programming, and they like to tie it in one way or the other with live programming. So next week we're showing The Princess Bride.
Oh, right, okay.
Which, of course, one of the characters is played by Mandy Patinkin.
Yes. Who was going to be, was also
be there on Saturday.
So was that a coincidence? Or?
No. They
did that on purpose?
They try to tie the films
really?
in with our live programming. So.
No, I thought it was great that you have Mandy Patinkin coming up.
And that's doing really well.
Real Broadway royalty there, right?
That's right. And actually, I have a bit of that background myself. I used to be a singer, and did both opera and musical theater. And we do mostly concerts that are more on the rock side of things. So I'm thrilled to have someone like Mandy Patinkin in the building.
But you have America coming up, right? Keb Mo is a great blues musician.
Yeah, we just confirmed. We just went on sale with Justin Hayward from
the Moody Blues. Yeah, that's great. So, some of the band members, Garth Hudson.
Yep, and we, Levon Helm from the band. He played his two possibly last big concerts at the music hall right before he died.
That's right, before he passed.
And those were two of the most amazing evenings.
I heard about those.
Because I think he knew that he was really on his last leg, and he just gave it his all, and it was an amazing feeling of camaraderie on stage too between the band and him. So
and a sense of history.
Yeah, and then you also have Lily Tomlin, a legendary comedian.
Well, we've consciously, actually, this year we made this officially the year of expanded family programming.
Right.
We've been doing a lot of rock concerts and gotten really good at it, and we always felt like we wanted to do more family programming, but we also want to do it in an affordable way. So now, some of the rock programming is sort of subsidizing the family programming a little bit, and we try to find sponsors and ways to keep ticket prices low for families. And it's great to have more diverse kind of programming.
No, so that is definitely what's happening here, right? That you are very consciously diversifying your programming to take in a broader demographic group, right?
And they're all, you also actually reach a point where there aren't enough tours for you to keep expanding your rock programming either. Right, so if you want to fill more dates, you kind of need to branch out and do different things. And also, it had something to do with increased competition from Portchester too, that we felt like, I think we should expand our programming a little bit and do other things than just
right. So that's sort of in a way that sort of upped your game a little bit.
Yes,
right?
I mean competition makes you
Right.
better.
Right.
So that's a good part of it.
Are you doing any original production or a liaison with those who are?
Very rarely. I mean, we're basically a presenting house. We do partner. We have resident company program, and we sponsor a couple of arts organizations. Mainly, our biggest support effort goes to the Random Farms Kids Theater,
Right.
and they obviously put their own shows together. But it's it's youth and kids on stage. But they also draw in a surprising number of people. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there are a number of those organizations like
yeah,
Ovation
Westchester's full of them.
Studio.
Yeah, there's
and
so much family stuff going on in Westchester.
yeah.
And one of the financial challenges that the Paramount Board of Directors talked about was how the difference in terms of contribution, the revenue generation, revenue streams, the difference between the box office sales and the contributed income,
Contributed
as they call
versus
it,
earned
was
income.
going out of proportion. Meaning
Right.
it was too much contributed income they were relying on, and not enough coming in from the box office. How does that work at your venue?
Well, we had a different history in a way. The Paramount was always good at raising money,
Right.
and we got good at making money. I think what happened when the Paramount closed, I think the outgoing organization, I think people are being a little too harsh on them, because I think they did an amazing job. They restored that theater
Yeah.
to the state it is now. They raised all the money to do so. They had a run of bad luck, basically, with programming for a couple of years, and maybe not finding the right people to lead it after, the John Janowski era was sort of
Right.
when the Paramount was at its peak.
Right.
But I don't think they get enough credit for what they actually did for the Paramount and for Peekskill. And so being an outsider in Peekskill, it's a great privilege to not be. I'm not part of any political fights or conflicts. I've gotten to know, for instance, Vinny Vesci, who was
Right.
the chairman of the board,
Right.
and he knows a lot more about operating a theater than people will today give him credit for.
Right.
I also met with Mayor Foster, during the when we had the proposal in for the Paramount, and I think she's doing a tremendous job for Peekskill as well. So hopefully the future is bright, and I mean, if there's goodwill, and the theater is something that's basically not a political football. I mean, nobody's going to be able to play partisan politics with it. So I think the goodwill is there, and it's gonna bounce back.
Yeah, and I mean, you were saying, however, in the case of the Tarrytown Music Hall, that even with the economic travails of the nation the last number of years, which you could also say is part of the reason
Right.
For the Paramount's fortunes or misfortunes, as the case may be. But you were just telling us that you were up during the recession, that your year over year
We've grown 10-15%
comparison was
in
up. So
sales.
what do you attribute that to? I mean, being as humble as you can about it.
Well, I mean, who knows? Maybe we would have grown more if the
Right.
recession hadn't been there. It's a what if question. I think when we came on board as staff to sort of to run it professionally, it was like opening the floodgates. I mean, I can't claim that I'm any kind of particular genius in operating a theater, but I think the music hall has its own magic. If you've been in there, you know that it's an amazing place to see a show. It's an amazing place to play a show. Musicians love to play that stage because they're close to the audience. It's a beautiful room to play. And beyond that, it's I don't know. I mean, the Paramount, I think, yes, the fundraising, that some of the funds dried up. It did.
Right.
I think it killed them off more than they were not the root cause.
Right.
Because over the last couple of years, their ticket sales had gone down significantly.
Right.
And so they were kind of already on the ropes, and that was sort of the last blow, I think, that
Right.
there was some specific funding that could have held them over and maybe allowed them to bounce back. I don't know. I think maybe it was a little too rash to just close them down that quickly, not give them another break. But I'm also not that close to it, so I don't know what all the ins and outs of it were.
Right. But I guess what you're saying is that they didn't have really enough margin for error.
Right. On the other hand, I mean, we haven't been nearly as good historically as the Paramount in raising funds, which I hope to correct.
Right.
But we've sort of spent the 10 years getting really good at making money. So we've had, which is almost unprecedented for a venue of our kind. Until recently, we operated with something like 95% earned income, just ticket sales, versus, you know, most theaters would be maybe 65%, and the rest would be, you'd have to raise the money every year to operate. And obviously, if you're relying on 35% contributed income, and there's a huge economic recession and everything dries up, you're in a much worse place. And it'll probably happen that way next time around, because, you know, we're maturing as an organization, we're hiring more people. So, you know, maybe we'll be more vulnerable next time too.
Right. Although you
don't want to be on the high horses here.
Right. But although you do list on your website, I mean, a lot of businesses and individuals who give you financial support.
Well, we are trying to step up our efforts, and a lot of things have changed. So we're not at 95% earned income now. And for our capital projects, we've gotten money from New York State, from Washington. So we've done really well with grants and fundraising in recent years. And we hope to step that up further.
Right. And you said, Bjorn, that you've been operating the Tarrytown Music Hall for 10 years, right? So before that, had you been operating a different entertainment palace? Or?
Not even close. I used to be on stage. I had no idea.
So you were purely a performer before you became
I've been a performer
an administrator
my whole life.
and impresario.
I had no idea there was so much stuff happening when I wasn't on stage rehearsing.
Did you perform with the Taconic Opera at all?
No. It was, you know, I moved here and started getting involved with the music hall pretty much right away. And, you know, I was an opera singer back in Sweden for some 10 years. And then I did
Nelson,
4 or 5. Well, she's Danish, I think. So
Danish?
I never had the pleasure.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think she was on the opera stage much, anyways. But then, no, I see what you're saying. No, Birgit Nilsson, yes.
Right.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
Oh, you were thinking of the one from the Schwarzenegger movies or something?
Yeah. The one, you know,
okay.
I know
she
you
was
mean.
dating Stallone, right, for a while.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, Birgit Nilsson, that's right. She's a wonderful singer, of course.
Right.
And then I did musical theater. I was in several productions of Phantom of the Opera. I sang in 4 different languages in Europe.
Oh, wow.
And I did a few things after I came over here, but, you know, the main thing, my time in the U.S. has been spent at the Tarrytown Music Hall. And we figured it out from scratch, and we did. So.
And so how do you make that kind of a transition? I mean, you're in the theater business, but not really. You're in the theater.
Right. So you have some kind of understanding of it, but, you know, it comes from, and so many of these Main Street theaters have the same story. It's, you know, community effort. Somebody decides we can't let this theater go. And then you have to figure out as you go. And you have to, the wonderful thing about that is that, you know, I've become good at operating the Tarrytown Music Hall specifically. And with all its roots in the community and as a part of that community as well.
Right.
And because there's no super easy way to do it. I mean, you know, the Paramount and the Music Hall really operated in very similar fashions. And because I think that's the market will steer you in that way.
Oh, what do you mean, though, when you say operate?
Similar programming.
Okay.
You know, if you have more contributed income, obviously you can do more stuff that you know is not going to make you money.
Right.
You know, more classical music, more family programming, as we talked about, and take more chances on stuff that, you know, this is part of our mission. You know, and that's also as a nonprofit organization, that's how we're different from a commercial venue. That we feel a responsibility to support local arts organizations and to also provide for our community the programming that we think, you know, they want and need. Right.
Even if it's not always big box office.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's very analogous to, let's say with Hollywood actors, they'll do very big commercial movies so that they can go off and then do their own little movie that, that may not have a big audience appeal.
But has big heart. And then
well, it's just, it's a passion. It's, I mean, it's that type of thing. So going forward, your programming is booked basically through, May or June now, right? And
May, June, we're starting to fill up the fall. I mean, not everything we have for the fall is on sale yet, but, it's, as a music venue, you work on a shorter cycle than if you're booking theater or classical music. Forget it, classical music and opera, they're booked 8-9 years out. We usually work, I mean, roughly on a 6-7 month schedule, and that's why, by the time we print a flyer, it's already old when it comes from the printer, because we continuously add shows. We don't work sort of season by season.
Right. And how many shows a year are we looking at, like for 2013, for example? It seems like every week, multiple times a week, you have things going on.
Oh, right? Absolutely. Yeah. I think last year we were doing some, and now we're counting everything from a little youth theater workshop, a movie, to Al Jarreau or a big concert. About 200 public events per year. Yeah.
Really? Wow. So you're not really docked too much.
No, no. I mean, we try not to.
Right.
Try not to.
And you also rent the theater, right? So people, like say, people watching, for example, what kind of uses could somebody, get the theater for?
Make of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have all sorts of things happening. Sometimes, some of the concerts that you'll see are rentals. Other producers or presenters will actually rent the theater, and they're going to put on a show. Like,
right.
We have Live Nation coming in sometimes, Outback concerts. We have local promoters like Loft Pro. They come in and do shows. We also have rentals that are, once in a blue moon, we have a corporate event. It's not too much. Love to see more, but and not to be forgotten, film shoots.
Yeah. Oh, really?
It happens. We have usually a couple per year.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw like it said Denzel Washington, one of his movies was filmed there, right?
Preacher's Wife was filmed, not so much inside the music hall actually, it was outside, sort of all around Tarrytown. The music hall was used in some capacity, but since I've been there, we've had Julia Roberts in, I'm so bad with the titles, Mona Lisa Smile.
Oh, wow.
We did an episode of Boardwalk Empire recently.
Oh, cool.
We had Robert De Niro was filming there for his with Matt Damon. What's it called? The CIA movie.
Oh yes,
The Good Shepherd.
Yeah, The Good Shepherd. Yeah.
And
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's great.
But it's from small commercial shoots to big feature films.
Right. Well, like I say, I mean the theater. Well, in this area is unique, really. Right? So that's So I could see where they'd want to use it. We have to. We have to start to wrap up. Did you have something else, Frank?
No, actually, I did have some questions for you because the content and the way in which you prepare the programming and segment that content in the process might be interesting to people. So at some point in the future,
for the next show,
come back
for part 2,
and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Tarrytown Music Hall Part 2. Anyhow, thanks very much, Bjorn, for being with us.
Pleasure.
Yeah, very interesting, and good luck going forward, and I'm sure we'll see you at some of the upcoming shows.
Welcome anytime.
Right. And thank you for watching Frank Talks with Bruce the Blog. And remember, when Bruce the Blog listens, people talk. Thank you.